Thank you very much. And thank you to our signer. Kia ora koutou katoa. It is incredibly fantastic to be with you here today. We're all getting ready for the election on November 26th. So, what will you be doing on November 26th? Too bloody right you will. And who will be voting to keep MMP? Yes. Good, that's an excellent start. But let's start how we intend to end. On what percent? 10%. Thank you very much. Or more. 10% plus. 14, Rick, what was it? 14 point something, darling? 14.21, thank you. Thank you. Details matter. My whānau, I am here for you. I am here for you and for the thousands of New Zealanders just like you. At the beginning of this year, I started the year in Parliament talking about my dad. And I told his story, the story of an ordinary man who just wanted to have an ordinary life, a decent job with a decent take-home pay and a home for him to care for his kids. I told of his life and of his early death, a death caused by a lifetime of poverty and hardship. I asked the question at the beginning of this year, what would have given my father a better chance at a satisfying and long life? What would have made his story more like mine? Today, I'm looking forward. Today, I ask the question, what future will I create for my dad's mokopuna? What will his moko have to look forward to? Well, first of all, decently paid work is one thing. Decently paid green jobs is one thing that our mokopuna will have to look forward to. You know, my dad had a really hard time getting work in the 1980s and 1990s. Unemployment was really high. We had very radical neoliberal economic governments in place. And the first to suffer from those policies were ordinary working men and women just like him, just like you. So I want to acknowledge the address yesterday from our co-leader Russell Norman and his recognition that the policies that locked my dad out of work in that time are the same policies that are now locking out a new generation of young men and women from work. As Russell, our opposition spokesperson on economics, as you know, said yesterday, that's right, as he said yesterday, we will build a compassionate green economy that will stimulate green jobs. And we will do this through both business incentives and through government leadership. Hey, how ironic is it that National is talking about protection and subsidies and the Green Party is talking about economic incentives, eh? We will create an economic transformation that means New Zealand businesses thrive, creating both green-collar and high-tech green jobs. The Greens and government will get serious about supporting local green jobs. And I want to give you an example. When the government gave KiwiRail $500 million to build 38 new carriages for Auckland's electrified rail network, that contract should have gone to the workshops in Hillside, in Dunedin, and Woburn in the Hutt. That would have created local jobs, building green carriages for Auckland's public transport network. It would have been a win-win with government leadership. In Dunedin, where I live, you know, everybody backed Hillside. The council, local chamber of commerce, the union, businesses that are all dependent on Hillside's work as well, all the MPs. We've been working for a very long time together to make this thing happen. And despite all the evidence setting out the economic benefits and the social advantages of building these trains at home, KiwiRail has shortlisted firms from South Korea and Spain to do the job. Now, Just how unlocal can you get? Spain is about the furthest, if you sort of poke your fingers at a globe. Spain is about the furthest you can get from here as the crow flies. You know, by the time you get to Spain, you're already halfway back home. So is that a good idea? Is that a good idea? No. Where should we build our trains? Yeah. Instead of creating green-collar jobs for our moko in the town of Dunedin and in Hutt, Kiwi Rail is creating jobs in Seoul and Madrid. In a smart, green, compassionate economy, those smart green EMUs would be built here in New Zealand by New Zealanders. Yes. So when you and your friends and family and everybody you know and everybody you campaign to gives their party vote to the Greens at this election, you are voting to create local green jobs. Russell also talked about the importance of New Zealand's clean green brand and the green solutions to make that brand a reality, not just an easy to say slogan. I mean, our environment is at the heart of our economy. One step we can take that he set out was to require a small charge for the commercial use of water. Another is to control the intensification of dairying through resource consents. But cleaning up our rivers is not just an economic issue. It's about caring for some of our most treasured places, our most treasured rivers. So I want you to tell me, and this is a chance for you just to shout it out. What is your most treasured river where you live? Keep going, more. Tarawera, awesome. Mohaka, awesome. The Avon, awesome, Christchurch. Let me tell you about one of mine. I grew up alongside the Manawatu River. In the summer, my dad would take my sister and I down to, after work, he'd take us down to the river for a wash and for a swim, to poke the inevitable dead sheep that was lying on the banks, to squeal about the eels that were going to eat us. Afterwards, he'd drive us back home up the hill, letting us sit on the open back door of the Kingswood station wagon with our legs swinging off the back. Yeah, I know, you can't do that anymore. Those are the days. That is one of my treasured places, and it will be so for my children just as it was for my ancestors. My ancestor Ho, from many generations back, travelled all through the Manawatu on his way up to Upoko or Te Ika, the head of the fish. He was on a rampage, I confess, all through the Manawatu. But when he came to this river, it was so wide and so deep that he faltered. And he sat on the banks of the river, desolate. But he regained his strength. And he crossed those raging waters and he continued on to cause havoc all through Otaki and the Wairarapa, which is, I confess, I'm quite thankful for, being the ancestor of mine. But to remember his time of weakness on that river, he named the river Manawatutu, stumbling heart. And the Manawatu still suffers from very serious pollution and degradation, and it would be easy for us to sit on its banks and to feel defeated about the work that we need to do to clean it up. But are we defeated? No. Have we weakened? No. Has our resolve strengthened? Yes. Excellent. The Green Party will make every river clean enough to swim in, and we will do it for our children and their children. We will do it. We will do it in memory of all of those who have sat on the riverbanks and watched their children play in the water. Yeah, yeah. The first victims of an unequal society and an unfair economy are our children. There's around 240,000 children living in severe poverty in this country, and that's more than 1 in 5. 1 in 5, and I think that's disgraceful. In practice, it means 240,000 children living in cold, damp homes where colds and flus keep them home from school. For many, it means a persistent sore throat, and for some, it means rheumatic fever, an illness that will steal decades from their lives. It means 240,000 children go without the basics every day: raincoats and proper shoes, a bike, a school trip, or glasses so they can see the classroom board. Many of these children in poverty live in families who are dependent on a benefit because benefits are still so miserably low. And many of these children have parents who are in work, in casual or uncertain jobs, earning the minimum wage because both Labour and National have kept the minimum wage too low to live on. Yet despite the reality of the lives of these children and their families, the National Party has made vulnerable families the enemy. And I say shame. National has made vulnerable families into the enemy. National has launched their attack on these families. Cuts in services, cuts to income, increasing the gap between those who have the most and those who need the most. And just last week, John Key promised that National would campaign on the vicious recommendations of the Welfare Working Group. Recommendations that will cut benefits and will tie benefits to contraception for women. Shame. So will the Green Party will not be part of this abuse of our families and children, will we? No! And in the next term of government, I look forward to the Green Party bringing 100,000 children out of poverty. And let me set out the 3 ways that we will do this, because we can do this. It is achievable. It's just a question of choice. Our children most in need are those whose parents depend on a benefit. And if those parents have some work, some part-time work, they are discriminated against in our tax system. So imagine Jane. She has a husband who has a job. Jane works 20 hours a week at Westmere Primary School, just over there, I think. She qualifies for $60 a week from the in-work tax credit. Take Sarah, a single mum. She works 20 hours a week at Grayland School, just over there, but she's on the DPB. Sarah is disqualified from receiving the in-work tax credit because she relies on a benefit, and that leaves her and her kids struggling on $60 a week less. The easiest way to correct this inequity is to extend the same tax support to all children, regardless of whether their children are in work or not, regardless of whether these children's families are on a benefit or not. And that will mean an extra $60 per week in the pockets of the families who need it the most. Now, Labour's original unfair policy punished children from the poorest families. National has continued to crack that whip and more. The Green Party will remove the discrimination in working for families and the in-work tax credit, and that alone will relieve 140,000 families and their children of the worst poverty. I look forward to doing that very much. Don't you? Yes. And while we're at it, why don't we make sure that beneficiaries get the opportunities that they need to retrain and to get an education that they might have missed out on? You might have heard my story before. I was 22, I had a small baby on the DPB, no school C, no sixth form, no prospects. But I was able to go to university, I was able to get to law school, and with the support of the public, your support, state support, I got my degree. And because I could get my law degree, I was able to get a great job as a lawyer and take care of my family ever since. Everyone deserves a second chance. A compassionate society, a compassionate economy makes sure that everyone gets one. Making the training incentive allowance available to more beneficiaries will help some 10,000 more New Zealanders improve their employment prospects at very little cost to the government. Those of us who use the training incentive allowance to move off the benefit do so about 6 months earlier than those who don't get access to it. We're also much more likely to move into a paid job, and we tend to be paid more when we do. Now, the maximum training incentive allowance is around $4,000 a year, but we can save up to $10,000 when a sole parent moves off the benefit 6 months earlier than they would otherwise. It would cost around $40 million a year, but it's going to save a great deal more money and in many, many more families and their children. So let's reinstate the training incentive allowance to degree-level courses and extend it to long-term sickness beneficiaries. Shall we do that? Yeah. Paula Bennett used the training incentive allowance to get her education when she was in a benefit, and now she has kicked away the ladder. I use, yeah, boo. I use the training incentive allowance, but I have not forgotten. And I look forward to other young women and men, just like me, getting a second chance in a smart, green, compassionate economy. A decent minimum wage is an idea whose time has come. Do you agree? Yes. As we've said for many years, the Green Party will raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour immediately and to 66% of the average wage within 4 years. Now, lifting the minimum wage is good for families, the economy, and it's certainly good for the government books, because those on low incomes tend to spend most of their money. There is an increase in government revenue from GST. It's around $70 million a year. And our research shows that raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour would also generate around $100 million a year in income tax. Plus there's savings from the accommodation supplement and working for families, because fewer New Zealanders would need that support. It's also worth saying here that it is generally the larger corporates, larger overseas corporates, who tend to pay the worst wages in New Zealand. Most smaller New Zealand companies do their very best to look after their people and are more likely to pay them enough to get by. So a $15 minimum wage means around $3,000 more each year for a working man or woman. It means around $170 million a year more in government revenue. And I want to say this to John Key: it is hypocritical to say that putting up wages costs jobs, when just last week you announced the sacking of thousands of public servants. The cuts to public spending don't mean less BMWs, they mean less people, and that's jobs. So John, those are crocodile tears that you are crying. If we raise the minimum wage, increase support to families, support beneficiaries into education, we can easily bring 100,000 children out of poverty. We can create a smart, green, compassionate economy that every family can look forward to. At this election, I'm looking forward to voting for this compassionate transformation, and I hope so are you. And you will have 2 opportunities to do it, because this is a 2-vote campaign. First, let's just remember, what will you do on November 26th? And just as importantly, what will you vote to keep? So who's looking forward to voting for MMP? We are. By voting to keep MMP, you are voting for a fairer society where everyone's voice is heard. We know just how good MMP has been for New Zealand. It's delivered genuine change and it's made a real difference. About a third of our MPs are women. We have Kiwi Bank and paid parental leave. They come from MMP. These things would not have happened without it. A fair voting system helps us towards a fair society. It means that every voice is heard and represented. It means that a government has the support of a majority of New Zealanders. A majority of New Zealanders know this, and they will be voting to keep MMP in November, but we must not be complacent. A fair system for a fair society is under attack from a tiny group called ACT, and National Party supporters and extremists. They will be formally launching their anti-MMP campaign soon. It's anti-democratic. An anti-MMP campaign is anti-democratic. It will be filled with lies and misrepresentations, and we've already heard the first one of those lies, that SM, the other kind, supplementary member, is a proportional system. That's a lie. It's a lie we will hear over and over again. Supplementary member is a first-past-the-post system, and it will lead to the concentration of political power into the hands of a very small elite again. The anti-MMP campaign will ignore the views of New Zealanders, will threaten our achievements in the representation of women and Māori, young people, Pacifica, Asian peoples in Parliament. The Green Party believes that every voice is entitled to be heard. Every vote is equal wherever you live in New Zealand. I look forward to voting to keep MMP. And I'm looking forward to even more good green change under MMP. You know, other parties fight for position, we fight for change. For a decade now, we've shown that we can make change as an independent party in Parliament. A unique party, distinct even. In this term alone, we have opposed the government and we have won. When it came to mining in our national parks, we were the political voice for hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders who said, love it, protect it, and we won. Our human rights champion, Keith Locke, took on the SIS over spying on members of Parliament, and he won. Our animal welfare champion, Sue Keachley, took on the cruel practice of sow crates, and she won. Sue and Keith, where are you? Awesome. Sue and Keith, these are just some of your most recent achievements, and you have left us a legacy of success as a green political voice and a green political force, and as green MPs. And we want to say to you, thank you very much for everything you have done. Together with concerned Kiwis from around New Zealand, we've challenged the madness of factory farming in the Mackenzie Basin, and we won. We fought for a Disabilities Commissioner, and we won. We fought for the right to be present at your own trial, go figure, and we won. Thank you, Ken. We took on all the other political parties to make MPs' expenses and perks public, and we won. Have slightly fewer friends in Parliament, I have to say, as a result of that. Still, it's the right thing to do. That's what we're there for. We've also found some common ground with the government this term. and we've worked with them through a formal memorandum of understanding. That agreement has helped to make New Zealanders safer from toxic sites around the country, including nearly $10 million additional funding to clean up the Tui mine in the Coromandel. The agreement has seen us build a practical, sustainable piece of tourism infrastructure, $50 million of funding to build a network of 18 cycleways throughout New Zealand. And we've launched a $4 million pilot project to protect New Zealand's forests and native species with better pest control, and we have made more than 100,000 New Zealand homes warm and dry through better insulation and more efficient heating. And we've still got another 80,000 to go, so there you go. These are some of our most notable achievements so far this term, and I'm looking forward to more good green change both this year and after the election. So then we come to the question of how will we make this change in the next term of government? Let's be clear that the Green Party are an independent and distinct political party. We have succeeded as an independent party. We have achieved because we are an independent party. We have kept the blighters honest because we are an independent party. We have stayed true to our values and our voters throughout a decade in Parliament. We have not been bought off by the baubles of office. We have not compromised on our core beliefs or lost touch with our constituents because of some unholy alliance. We are principled, we are patient, and we have built a powerful political voice as an independent party. And alongside our principled independence sits our ambition. And our ambition is to look after our land and all our people. We are also bound by a sense of urgency. The economic, environmental and social challenges that face our country need urgent action. A mix of this belief and this desire has shaped our discussions as a party over the last several months. We have worked collectively and we have finally decided unanimously on a political position for the 2011 election. So I can formally announce today that after the election, the Green Party will consider support for a Labour-led government ahead of a National-led government. It is highly unlikely that we could support National on confidence and supply, but we have not ruled it out entirely, and we could certainly work with them like we do now, with an agreement that has delivered some $400 million worth of good green change. Now, let's be very clear that more green votes means more gains no matter what the makeup of Parliament or the makeup of government. No matter what the coalitions or confidence supply agreements or any machinations in the political realm, more green votes means more good green change. And if we want more good green change, then we must party vote green, because we have a track record of leading that change in Parliament. If we want more good green change, then party vote green, because we are a party that can work with National or Labour without losing our integrity. If we want more good green change, then party vote green, because we have been staunch in our opposition under both, and we have made gains with both. We can get stuff done. And I can... We can get stuff done, and I can promise New Zealanders that we will get more wins under Labour or National if you give us your party vote. I've come to the end of my time with you. It feels a bit too soon. I'm looking forward to more good green change in the next term of Parliament. I'm looking forward to creating a future where my dad would have thrived and would have lived a long and satisfying life. He didn't live to see the shift that is happening now, the shift to smart, green, compassionate economics. He was sacrificed to dead-end economic ideas. And I wish he had lived to see this transformation, because smart, green, compassionate economics doesn't demand the sacrifice of the environment, it doesn't demand the sacrifice of the people, and it would not have demanded his. But I am looking forward to creating a future where his mokopuna, his, yours, will thrive and live long and satisfying lives. I am looking forward to Party Vote Green. How about you?